Okay, bring it in. The NBA season is upon us. Again, David, another one. They did another one. Can you believe it?
I can.
This
I
is
can believe
Bring
it,
It In
actually, yes.
Zoom from Quarantine Show. And the NBA season started last night, and we have a giant bunch of notes from David's observational brain about the first night of games. Before we get to that, David, we have to talk about James Harden going to strip clubs.
Yeah. Did he see Lou Williams there? No, he probably didn't. Lou actually was playing last night. Yeah. So this is, I guess, Tim McMahon. I didn't see this. You did. He may not be playing tonight, right? Because there's video of him at a strip club. Is there a date? I guess there must be a date when he was there, and you have to quarantine for longer than that. We're going to deal with this all year, Henry. You predicted this a while ago. Like, this is going to be an issue. And just to touch on something you wrote way back before the Orlando games, like you had to have a guy like LeBron really getting people, hey, we got to be smart about this. But it was easier to not break protocol there. People are on their own now, right? And this is what we're going to see. And when you may be a superstar and get away with a lot as a superstar, but people are going to take pictures of you if you're where you're not supposed to be. And it's going to come at a cost. And maybe Harden doesn't play tonight for Houston, which is why I'm not so high on Houston this year.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a leadership problem. We have another troop story in the works on the Rockets and the exact spectacular way things are screwed up there. It's a weird story. But at this point, it seems like, I don't know if you also saw that he reportedly threw a ball at Jayshawn Tate in a practice. Like, it's every day there's a sign that the loving spirit of teamwork is not functioning in Houston, and I don't know exactly what that means. Other than, doesn't it feel like we're about to get news of a trade? Doesn't it feel like
Yeah.
it's not going to be there long?
Yeah. And then I just want to throw one thing out there, and you can call me whatever you want. But so I grew up in the Tampa Bay area. Tampa, you may not know this. Probably you don't. And I'm proud of you for not knowing this. But for a period of time, it was known as one of the better places for strip clubs. I don't even know why, but it was. And I never understood it. And when I started dating my wife, I was only 22, and friends started getting married. And that's where bachelor parties end up. And I would meet her at the parking lot with some friends of mine that also were married or had serious girlfriends. And she would just drive us home. Like, we saw our buddies that got married. What the hell is going on? Well, when I was 20, I went maybe twice. I probably been to 4 or 5 in my life. What the hell's going on, James? You're a grown ass man. All right. You don't need to be doing this, even if it wasn't for the pandemic we're all dealing with. The people are getting sick and dying from. And we just saw Keontae Johnson. We just read today. There is speculation that he had good medical speculation about heart inflammation. They don't know if it's connected to the COVID he had, but it's something to be concerned about. If you're a caring person for yourself and your teammates, it should not be a tough speech to give the rest of your team from all across the league. Guys, make better decisions, please. It's affecting all of us. And you don't need to be going to strip clubs, man. You're done with that.
I'm trying to be like a realist in the sense of, like, I think he's going to go to strip clubs. I don't think anything's going to change. He is 31.
You mean my speech isn't going to work?
I don't think it's going to work.
I think
I like it. It sounds good. But but to me, I'm like, okay, do whatever you want. I'm not going to judge, whatever. But it's not working. Like, your team's not loving you. Yeah. Like, people aren't excited to play with you.
That's a great point, right?
In fact, like, there are good teams who super value your basketball skills, and they're not sure they want to give up assets for you, right? Like this is the problem is that you might not fit on a good team, right? That's the worry, which could make your next 5, 6, 7 years way less fun than if people just thought you could be a good teammate.
Well, especially this,
hi James,
especially this year, where you do have COVID protocols to follow. You're asking for a general manager and an owner to say to their current team, we're going to bring James Harden in, and we think he's going to change. That's what you're saying by doing this deal, and I disagree with you. I agree with you. I think those current players who aren't going to be part of that trade deal are going to think, well, no, he's not. He's James Harden. Whatever the fuck he wants to do, he's going to do.
I mean, he's quite like so the metaphor would be he's a bad guy to date, right? Like if the Rockets and James Harden are dating, he's like showing he doesn't care much about his significant other. It's also not a metaphor. He's in the strip club every night, right? Like,
Right.
this is not marriage material. It just isn't like on any level. Anyway, okay. So enough with James Harden. We do though. I'm pretty excited about it. We're working on another Rocket story. Not sure when it'll be done, but very interesting, David. Very interesting findings. I'll just say that. Okay. Last night, game one was the Brooklyn Nets against the Golden State Warriors, and it wasn't close at all. Tell me what you learned from watching that game.
I thought you were going to use air quotes with game one, right?
I know.
Scrimmage, exhibition, a meeting of two distinct teams. There was no game after the first few minutes. And there was a point in the game, second quarter, Warriors were down 16. And I, in my own, coaching brain, I'm thinking these next few minutes, either the game's going to remain competitive, get more competitive, or it's over. This was before the halftime. And there were 3 or 4 straight possessions where the Warriors had a chance, open threes that they did get, turnovers that they shouldn't have made, that could have cut it to 13 or 12 or 11, and then they have the game. And there's a tipping point on a lot of these games, 90 some odd percent, where you just know, okay, at that point, the game's over. And almost never does the other team come back. And then they hit the tipping point because they didn't score when they needed to. So, yes. So on the net side of things, you have to qualify every observation with they played a JV team plus Steph Curry, okay, who was back for the first time in a year. And I'm sorry, it's not a great way to evaluate the Nets. I had people, including mutual friends of ours, who were boasting about the Nets are going to make the finals, which is what they predicted before. And I just responded by saying, maybe they'll be good enough to make the finals, but we don't know because they beat this JV team. And I, so-called smart analyst, thought the Warriors would be better. Not last night, better, but over the course of the season, I think they're going to be a playoff team. And I think I'm wrong. I was destroyed, but we'll get to the Warriors in a minute. So the Nets look great. KD, most importantly, I guess you would say, well, tell me what you thought, but I thought KD and Kyrie looked like they've been playing for a while. This was not game one to them. Super sharp. What do you think?
Oh, did every Kyrie shot go in? It felt like it to me. It felt like
he shot well. His handle was tight too, though.
Some shots, but they're like wiped clean from my memory, and like, well, Kyrie's magical. I was everything's going in, and just like and there was that the play that you and we talked about on the phone briefly, where James Weissman goes over to help and like is there and actually has an uncalled foul on Kyrie, who puts up this like little teardrop that bounces in, and you can see James Weissman being like, man, in college, what I just did like shuts it down, right? Yeah. In high school for sure. And in the NBA, like Kyrie makes that shot, and bummer.
Right, Mike. Yeah, you wrote this. You wrote this in your piece. We'll get to the Warriors, but yeah, I thought Weissman, like, man, he's better than he is in the video game, kind of thing. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
I did everything right. The Nets, I see in our chat too. People, I'm not ready to jump to conclusions that the Nets are some kind of powerful team because they beat this horrid. Well, for one game, the Warriors were horrid. All right. We don't know if the Warriors will be this way. They just were that bad last night on both ends. Their lack of defensive intensity and awareness was alarming, except that they just started training camp at breakfast. Like, that's how recently these things have happened. We're going to see a lot of this. In the Lakers-Clippers game, there was a stretch of the Lakers-Clippers game, we'll get into more later, where it looked like it was just as bad as the Warriors looked. Both teams did. Just no purposeful anything. But I thought that the Nets have a lot of talent, and LeVert coming off the bench is nice. Dinwiddie, whatever his role ends up being, he's a good player. They've got enough talent to do another deal if they want. I don't know what I know because of what I saw against this terrible team, except for they look like they played with joy. They didn't do post-game interviews with joy, which we can get to in a minute, but they played with joy, and that's pretty much something that has to happen, right? And can they keep that, Henry, with LeVert's role, which we'll get to in a minute, and Kyrie being Kyrie and KD being KD? Are they always going to have joy? Because I'll tell you this, if you saw the Lakers, we'll get to them later, at the ring ceremony, of course they had a great time. Who wouldn't have a great time getting your rings? But that's what they looked like all last year. The Lakers had joy all the time, And then they put their game face on and kicked your ass physically. But there was a joy, there was a lightness to, I thought, the Lakers. And I give LeBron great credit for that and AD. And they got serious when they needed to. I don't know if the Nets can do that. I know they have to be able to do that if they want to be a contender. You've got to have a lightness and joy about you because the games are a grind when you're not playing a JV team.
Yeah, I loved seeing there was a little shot of the bench when Karis LeVert made like one of his crazy buckets, and you could see Kyrie being like, "Oh," like, and I was just like, I'm glad he's happy for him. You know,
Yeah.
they are taking touches from that guy, right? That guy's at an age where we saw him in the bubble. You know, ordinarily this would be the year that he's like vying to become an all-star and not coming off the bench at all, and etc. And you know, that all changed because of this roster shakeup, and that's what I was a little worried. Karis LeVert came in. Well, actually, I did a fun thing. I have a new thing. So here's how it goes when you watch an NBA game. You can my game is pretty much I'll watch it live and endure commercials, which drives me a little crazy. It just takes so long to watch the game, or I'll start an hour later, and then you can watch it. But there's a third option, David, that I just figured out last night because it took me forever. Watch it live, and I got, I don't know, half an hour in, and then I just went back to the start, and I basically watched everything twice. Like, I watched almost every minute of that game twice because I was writing about James Weissman and I wanted to watch him twice. But upon review, I saw more Karis LeVert. I saw it more clearly, and like, here's what I can tell you happened. If you watch, he checked in every time he touched the ball, he shot it.
Got it.
Like, he didn't look up once. A slight exaggeration, but he was in there for a while before he passed the ball. And okay, game one, it's fine. He's like Ben Gordon off the bench with the old Bulls, right? Where he is a very good scorer. This is a good role for him, but he gets really easy to scheme against as the opposing coach if you know that he's looking down the whole time, right? And he gets less effective, and then he gets frustrated and feels like he needs to shoot even more, and on and on. Like, I saw in Karis LeVert like profound anxiety. I saw a guy who was like, I need to prove to the world that I'm the best scorer in the league. I'm gonna score a million points, and maybe that settles out. It's game one. We'll see how it goes. But I took from this that like these roles aren't stable. That like Karis LeVert is about to explode, and we'll see if how that shakes out.
Right. And this is what Steve Nash has to do, managing egos, managing talent, right? And I don't know that LeVert shouldn't start and just be one of the first guys to come out, maybe the first guy, and then score more in the second unit. They should play with that. They should try different things. It's still now a 71 game season. That's a long season still,
Yep.
even if it's a shorter time frame. We're going to be playing games in July. I don't know if they'll be playing games in July. They'll definitely be playing games in May. That's 5 months from now. So they have a lot to figure out. And we'll as we talk Lakers Clippers later, the Clippers beat the Lakers last year in game one.
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw what happened later on, of course, after the pandemic break and all of that. Teams can change. So the joy that the Nets feel now, let's just see where they're at in a week, in a month, in 2 months, in 4 months, and then a trade happens or they lose 3 games in a row or whatever. I'm just not ready. I don't know yet defensively what their commitment is. And to me, that's a big deal. Like, I don't know what Nash ever was committed to defense as a player. That doesn't at all mean he can't be committed as a coach, of course. But they need to. Like the Lakers showed us last year the value of having a defense. We know this every year. We know this. We know the Warriors, absolutely the best defensive team in the league when they wanted to be, and often were until they could wait to the playoffs to do it. Then they did in the playoffs. So Cavaliers too, playoffs with LeBron. I don't know how good the Nets are going to be on defense. They have some holes automatically. I know having DeAndre Jordan, Jared Allen at the center spot is good. You know, people are ripping centers all the time now. Having rim protectors like that have value. Jared Allen's good. Like, I don't think they can trade him because I think there's their long-term center if they're thinking long-term or medium term. But he's good. I think coming off the bench, that's a nice 1-2 punch for them.
I was thinking too, you know, if James Harden is going to be traded soon, and the Nets are one of the potential destinations, like this Karis LeVert situation is, like, if he's really unhappy, it changes a little bit, maybe the calculus for the Nets, right?
If the Rockets trade for Karis LeVert, I would be so disappointed in that franchise. I already am for a million reasons, but just add this to the list. He's ready to win right now. And they have a roster ready to win 51% of their games right now with Karis LeVert. Like, you really want to do that as opposed to trying to just kind of restart in a sense. And I don't typically like pressing the reset button that way, but I don't know if they have any other options with the talent, lack of talent they have, to be just an average team that's so far removed from having the ability to get, if you could win half your games with LeVert, but had a young guy that you thought could suddenly become another great player, great, but they don't. That's to my knowledge, they don't even have that. So and I feel bad for Karis LeVert. Like, at least he could be a six man for a potential contender. That'd be more fun.
Unless he hates it, right? Yeah,
Right.
That's where I get mad. Like, if we think he's going to be a problem, I'm not saying I know this, but anyway.
Right.
All right, we should talk about the Warriors. The Warriors are funny. It's like we're super familiar with this team in a different version, right? We watched this roster, and actually, it's funny when the game started. Somehow, I had missed that Draymond Green had hurt his foot. And I was like, "Why are they starting Eric Pascal? Like, what the hell is going on? This is super weird." But yeah, they were terrible, right? They were just terrible. What'd you see?
They were terrible. That's what I saw. Well, first of all, if you want to win an NBA game against a team with Kyrie and KD and DeAndre Jordan and Joe Harris, who's very good, and Spencer Dinwiddie's very good, when your starting lineup is Eric Pascal and James Wiseman, trouble. Like, they're not ready to help you win games. I'm sorry. I love James Wiseman. We'll talk about him. But that is not a team that's going to win many games. Before I go further, though, we forgot one thing. We talked about the joy of the Nets they had. Judy, let's play Durant's post. He's being interviewed by Ernie and the guys on TNT, and he's doing a lot of one-word answers. So listen to what the guys say after he's finishing here.
Kevin Durant, 22 points and 7 of 16 shooting, and a 125-99 win on opening night over Golden State. Thanks a lot for spending a couple of minutes with us. We appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Keep playing it, Judy.
It was loud in that arena. We couldn't hear it.
Yeah. There was so much energy in there, wasn't it?
He was excited to pump in.
Okay, that's good. They went on to make fun of Kevin Durant for his clear disinterest in having this interview. He was not happy to be there. Respectful to Ernie, but not happy to be there. Henry, what were your thoughts on that?
Number one, just Greg Popovich, right? It's exactly like Greg Popovich would handle that situation. And I do think that is intentional to create an us and them feeling, right? We're like inside the Nets locker room, they laugh and be free, but we're the outside, right? Like, and we're making clear, like, you guys aren't in here, you're not coming in. I also have Kevin Durant's been around a long time, right? Yeah. And I am ready to write a term paper about how I think Kevin Durant resents basketball insight or expertise coming from any source that isn't Kevin Durant. Like, he just, like, you know, when he was playing when analytics first came to the game, and he was very upset about it. Like, we had a stupid thing where, like, I wrote a story about how in plus minus it was a mystery why he was so terrible when he was
in year three. He was bad in year three.
Yeah, he really they were far better when he was out of the game, even though he was an incredible scorer. And it was a little mystery. We're all trying to learn about basketball here, right? What was it? And then you could watch the video and you could see that he didn't chase around screens and his guys got open all the time and blah, blah. And then he tweeted, so I wrote the story, and then he tweeted me basically like, you know, I don't see why you would like hate me. I work so hard, basically. I was like, no, I don't hate you, man. Like, I don't, like, we're just trying to learn about the game. We thought that what you did was A+, but now we're learning it's A-, right? Like, that's how we're learning. But and you could see it the rest of his days. Like, if anybody in the locker room is like, hey, you guys didn't have a great third quarter, he's like, who says we didn't have a great third quarter? Like, he's mad that he's not the source of the intel. And that's fine, but that's what I felt like that was what was going on there. Like, you know, Charles had opinions, Kenny had opinions, and KD's like, I wish he didn't.
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah. I mean, if your thing is different from my point of view, and I'm not saying you're wrong at all, I'm only looking at it this way. If you want to do an us against them mentality, which you mentioned initially, and that works for you and the team, great. my attitude would be we're already going to have so much attention on us. We're the Brooklyn Nets. We've got KD and Kyrie. Let's play the game. That's part of politics, right? Of basketball. Play the game and let's focus on just winning games. But he just looked like he didn't want to be there. I thought maybe he was just sick of those stars taking shots at him, which maybe I don't really watch them. They don't really give us any insight, to be clear. You're not going to learn about anything valuable regarding basketball if you're watching that show. You may laugh. I laugh the few times I watch it. I've made a commitment to watching games more with my wife in my house as opposed to my office where no one's around. And I can have 4 games on at once. There's only 1 game on last night. Because if I'm in my office, there's no way I'm watching those guys talk for 1 second. But last night I had no choice. I'm not going to click it in commercial, whatever. And they're funny. It's just not basketball insight. I don't think they're trying to deliver that. Anyway, I just thought if the Nets lose the joy of playing for Steve Nash, by the way, KD had a great answer. When he was asked, the first question he was asked by Shaq is, what's it like playing for a guy that's never coached before? And KD talked about, guy played for a long time. He's got these great basketball insights. KD did give a good answer, and I agree with what he said. And it was thoughtful and mindful. But
it was also, he also neutered the idea that there was special. He's like, it's just basketball. Like, you just got to run on the break. You got to make it, whatever. Like, he was like, there's never going to be anything from Steve Nash or anyone that's going to change, that's going to like make a big difference to me. It's just stuff I know. To me, that's what I heard him saying.
He did, but I watched it again this morning because I was looking for one thing that I'd forgotten. I didn't know if he said it. He did. He talked about the principles he's worked on us every day, whatever those principles are. No middle attack, be smart with the ball, whatever. He did say that, but I thought his answer was professional, and then I thought the rest of the interview he kind of lost that a little bit and allowed for those guys to make fun of him. And my point is this: they played with joy in game 1, like you said, the way Kyrie reacted to LeVert making a bucket. Let's see what it looks like on game 50. Mm-hmm. We'll be looking for stuff like that, right? Okay, so speaking of joy, the Warriors had none.
One more. I forgot I have one more KD thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
When he hurt himself, I talked to 2 movement experts, and they had very specific observations of how he moves. And then he went away, did all his Achilles rehab, and I was hoping to see that when he came back, he would not be moving in the same way that they saw before he was injured, right? And remembering he had profound lower leg injuries. This is 3rd one, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm right saying. And there's stuff about his hips and his knees and the way he moves, and I'm not the expert on this. And I'll just say that I watched him pretty closely in preseason looking for improvement there, looking for, and it's not there. Like, he, in the very moment that he tore his Achilles, he had an externally rotated foot, right? So he was driving hard with a full extension on an externally rotated foot, which is a known, like, he does that every drive now, still. Like, and there's a little stuff about his hips and the kind of stuff Steph did to reduce his ankle injuries, where he got a very strong core. Like, no sign of that. Like, I'm not diagnosing him, but I'm just saying, like, I was hoping to see him repaired and stronger in a way where you're like, oh, looks like a guy who's going to stop having lower leg injuries. I've seen no sign of that, which is a bummer. I hope he's fine. Hope I'm wrong. Hope it doesn't matter.
Right, of course.
But the idea that, like, he's back, I'm like, let's see. Let's give it a second.
He definitely on the court as a skill guy. He's all the way back skill. Well, not all the way back because you have to play some games, but it's something we'll watch out for. All right, so let's talk about the only bright thing. There were 2 positives. I'm going to say 3 positives about the Warriors. Positive 1, which was the least positive of the 3 that I'll say, is I think Steve Kerr is an adult, and so he's not going to lose his shit. He's not going to go crazy. I think he understands that he's got a JV team plus a couple of good players. There's some talented guys in that JV team, but they're JV players still. They're going to get their brains beat in. The second positive is Steph Curry looks like he's going to be fine. I'd like to see him more assertive. Even he probably needs to take even more threes, attack more. He's been out for a long time, and so they need to help him. And there's a problem when you play with JV players. Part of the problem is they don't know how to pass the ball. And so it's got to be always Curry with the ball. That's a problem. Curry's much better off when he can score either way, with or without the ball. Is literally you're doubling his weaponized skills, right? And without Draymond Green, there don't have anyone else that can really pass the ball that I saw. And then the most positive thing, although I have to say Oubre looked good. I thought Oubre looked fine and aggressive. And I'll talk about him more in a second. Weissman is going to be magnificent. Like, I'm so proud of him for missing jumpers. I wish they were threes and not long twos. He made some. He made a three, made some long twos. He missed one right-hand shot that was a great shot, and he almost made it. He missed one right-hand running hook over DeAndre Jordan, which he missed
so fast.
Badly.
That hook was like a speed hook.
Yeah, he missed it badly, but I like that he did it. He's got to develop as weak hand for sure, and then it becomes much harder to guard. But you're talking about the best way to think of James Weissman last night is early in the game, he got a rebound. He pushed it coast to coast and just trucked KD for the charge.
Yeah.
Right? Boom. I love that Kerr let him do it. Remember I told you the story about the guy at the homeless shelter for kids let the girl with cerebral palsy carry the turkey to the table. Well, that's the same thing as Steve Kerr letting James Weissman push the break and then truck KD. But later in the game, second half, same situation. I don't remember if it was Joe Harris or not, but at the last second, Weissman came to an abrupt stop and didn't charge the guy. And I thought, ooh, my boy's a fast learner too, because he was going to be about to truck another guy. So if Weissman can shoot the three, and he had one great play where he faked the handoff to someone going to his right, quickly turned the corner, left hand at the rim in a second flat. Like, as they develop some different ways to get him involved, which they will, as they see his skills grow, and he has no idea what he's doing defensively. I shouldn't say no idea. He did a good job mostly of not fouling. I thought he'd foul more. He also didn't really affect the rim a whole lot. A couple times he did. He's going to, though. Like, he got a standing reach of 9'6", as you wrote. He is a very tall, agile, athletic, focused guy. And then, Judy, if you want to play, we just saw KD acting like he does not want to be interviewed. Let's have, Weissman was asked about when did he realize he's in the NBA now? What was his wake up
back,
moment?
and then DeAndre Jordan got that dunk over me. And that's when I realized that I got to turn it up. So after that, I was like, I don't got no choice. Like, I'm in the league now, so I need to go ahead and just be aggressive on every possession. Just don't take nothing for granted. So yeah.
You talking about that lob pass that he caught?
Yeah, that lob pass was crazy.
Okay. So he just looked like he's the kid. He's a teenager, right? He's the young guy. He had fun. But I like what he said to himself, and who knows what he really said to himself in the game. Although I don't think he was lying in the post-game show when he's like, hey, you just got to go all out. Yeah, you're going to get dunked on, dude. This is the NBA. Just go play. So, Henry, why don't you talk a little bit about some things you saw, because you focused on him for the game in the 2 times you watched that terrible game.
There was that moment when he trucked KD, Chris Webber said, oh, you got to pass that out and then post up. And I just thought, like, oh, Chris Webber, this is why Anthony Davis left New Orleans, right? Like Anthony Davis wants to be the guy who's leading the vanguard of what big men will do in the future in the NBA, which David's been enlightening us to with how you become Bam Adebayo, right? And to me, like James Weissman made a mistake on that play, which was as he was dribbling a million miles an hour, he didn't read it perfectly, he didn't move perfectly. But that's a skill he wants, right? Practice that, right? Like, do that. He will. I don't even think he's that far from turning that exact play into a dunk, right? Like, and Kevin Durant's good at what he does, and James Weissman's in his first game. But yeah, I felt like delighted. I was like, oh, this is. And when he checked out, I realized the game just lost a certain verve, right? It was I was like, oh yeah, no, we can watch this game, but it's so much more fun. And then there was he checked out only like 4.5 minutes into the game, and then he was gone until some point in the second quarter. But I was like, bring him back, like just especially once it was out of hand. I was like, just let the dude run around and do stuff and try stuff. And I think maybe close to 10 times a ball just hit his hand, a rebound or a pass or loose ball, like hit him in the hands and went out of bounds. Like I don't think that's going to be standard for him, right? And I feel like once he starts snarfing up all these loose balls and catching these passes, I think he's going to have like 30, 40-point games. Like I think he's going to have. He had 19 points doing everything wrong.
Right.
It,
Right. So two things on the hands thing. The way that the average person, I'm not calling you average. You didn't say this, but they think it means he has bad hands. No, he had a pick and roll dunk that showed great hands. He's so long and agile and aware. He gets his hands on balls. Most guys can't even think about getting their hands on. The game is still going super fast. It's the NBA, and the bodies are big, right? And veterans, let's face it, DeAndre Jordan, Jared Allen have been around a minute or two. So, yeah, the game's going to slow down. If you've seen the trailer for Wonder Woman 1984, which I'll be watching from our hotel room in Tallahassee with my son and my wife and daughter, very excitedly, spaced out with it 20 degrees outside, windows open, and mask on, but we're watching it. But Wonder Woman can see the bullet as it flies through the air. You saw this in the first Wonder Woman too. That's what it's going to look like for Wiseman. He's like, oh, here comes the ball. Oh, let me just go unfurl my 11-foot arms and grab it. No problem. Like, that's coming. Here's the second thing. He was sealing dudes. He was, hey, I'm here, and hitting the guy. Like, he looked like he was a 1950s pivot player. And as I'm watching him play with JV guys doing this, I'm thinking in my head, you sweet young man, those guys have no fucking idea what you're doing. They've never played with a gigantic man sealing perfectly. He was open all over the place.
all the time.
And I told you, this is, and I'm probably right with this at some point, this is the one place in the NBA where I think passing is underrated, undervalued, unseen. We don't have enough gifted passers. And the Warriors have none of them after Steph Curry that I witnessed, except for Draymond, who didn't play. But when Looney, I thought Looney wasn't on the court with him. Looney, I think, they might even play with a little lineup because Wiseman's so athletic, and Looney can guard fours. The problem is Wiseman has to be able to shoot, and then you can play Looney because he can't really shoot. Although they're letting Looney shoot threes too. But Looney can pass, and Draymond can pass, and Curry can pass. Those guys, as they start recruiting passers, I mean, when you have a guy sealing like that, there's two things going on. One, you can throw it to him from different angles than what they were looking for, turning into a dunk or getting fouled, or those are driving lanes because he can then turn his body and keep the defender off. That's going to come. Like on tape, remember these guys, how many practices has Wiseman even had? Not many.
Yeah.
Like less than 10.
And Draymond was his special buddy, right? Like in practice, from what we heard. And
That dude's going to get easy buckets because he's enormous and knows how to use his body. This is not a new school guy that just wants to be Bam Adebayo on the perimeter, and there's nothing against Bam. He's good at that. He also doesn't mind being Embiid. That's what I was thinking. He looks like Embiid out there, an enormous man with great feet and understanding how to use his body. All of this adds up to a very, very special player. Of course, I'm biased because I wrote what I wrote, but that's why I wrote what I wrote 2 months ago. Yeah. There's no one in this draft like this guy. He's a top pick in almost any draft. If Zion is in this draft, maybe you pick Zion first, but there's lots of work that has to be done to make that decision. That's the kind of upside Wiseman has. And then the last part of that is he's this bright, fresh-faced kid who apparently, from what my research do, really wants to be a special talent, and he's mature. Like he didn't play like a puppy dog. He played like a mature young man that's watched tape and knows what's going on to some degree. The Warriors have to be thinking, okay, we got to find some better players, but this guy, wow, they should be thrilled.
Yeah, there's to your amazing point about Wonder Woman seeing the bullet. Those were his sins, right? Like the where DeAndre dunked, it was a moment of his, like, he's got a conviction to be helpful, but he's a little bit over here, and then the play was over there, right? Like DeAndre Jordan isn't making that mistake this many years in, or he's like, oh yeah, here's how here's how this one goes. Or there were a few times where he was like ended up boxing out with his body completely contorted and twisted, and he's like, ah! But I'm like, just take a breath.
Settle down. Right.
Yeah, like get
Yeah.
balanced, be strong, right? Like,
Yeah.
but by the time he's actually the ball's coming, he's like, I was kind of trying to go over there and here, and like,
Yeah.
I've been there. I know this feeling on the court where you're a little bit uncentered, but that won't last long.
To finish up on that, I liked Oubre, as I said, but the one thing about Weissman is he is a rookie, and as someone who's been helping high-level scorers take advantage of dumb rookies, because they're just all dumb, basically. He wasn't so dumb, I thought, last night. Rookies grow up. The same way we would attack in the game plan of attacking a certain rookie who would go after every fake, and they're going to be super hyper and everything. We used to get upset when the rookies would foul, because we didn't want them to come out, because now here came the 4-year veteran who isn't as good as the rookie, but he's not going to fall for the shit we were doing against the rookie, right? We don't want to foul. Keep getting your minutes up. Then all of a sudden you play that rookie a year later and like, okay, the game is settled down and we have to work harder to score now. If you have a team of all rookies, people are going to have career highs every night because they're too hyper in a sense. He'll slow down. They'll coach him up on that.
I think you're right that you guys are talking about the Wolves in the chat. You got my head. The Warriors are going to be not as good as we thought, but I would add, so they didn't have Draymond, which is a big deal.
It is
for his play, but also it bumps up everyone. It means they're playing terrible players, right? Wiggins was terrible.
Terrible.
Maybe will improve. I don't know. They're missing Clay. And they're also kind of missing the real Kevon Looney, right? Like he has been far better at times in his life. When we know the Warriors to be good, they have, 4, 5, 6 really solid players. They didn't had like one yesterday.
Right. Well,
right?
your point's exactly right, because Green's more than solid. Looney used to be, and Looney's defense was fine last night, but he needs to be better offensively. He got better as the game went on. He wasn't finishing around the rim. He's been injured some too, I think, and just getting back on his feet. If they have enough solid, well, then Curry can lift them, right? Draymond a little bit, Curry a lot. And then Weissman is a big upside guy. So Wiggins is the one guy that I didn't like his motor. He didn't, Oubre had 2 spectacular dunk attempts, got 1. Looney, Wiggins, nothing. I'm going to hold my tongue. It was game 1. They got overwhelmed, but they need much more from Wiggins, or he's going to be. I didn't like the trade to begin with. I like Russell. I wanted them to have D'Angelo Russell longer. They must think they can get something out of Wiggins. It didn't work last night.
It's a bummer. Yeah. Oubre, I know we talked a lot about the Warriors, but that Oubre, Oubre thought he had a dunk the play before.
So good. It was so impressive.
Called for an offensive foul?
No, he missed it.
He missed it.
At the back of the rim.
He was running back down the court and his face was like, you could see he was like, that was some BS, right? And then next play, he just like freaking one of my favorite. I was like, get out of your seat.
Yeah. I was surprised. I think my wife, I scared her when I reacted, because I've almost seen it all, but on occasion, this was my favorite memory of Dwayne Wade, his rookie year. I was really getting back in the NBA for the first time that year also. And I was just overwhelmed at least once every Heat game with something Dwayne did. And now I'm much more jaded. I've seen it all. But when Oubre had that second dunk, I'm like, whoa, holy.
Is he left-handed?
Yeah, going right, which you really shouldn't do because it's a slower dunk. But he knew what he was doing. Yeah, I thought he played good. He's going to fit good. All right, let's get to the Lakers and the Clippers.
He looks very fit, I would say, too.
He looked great. Yeah. Pascal and Looney did not look fit. Curry looked good, and I thought Oubre looked great. All right, Lakers.
Los Angeles Lakers. They're kind of famous. We should probably talk about them.
Yeah, go. You were the first. You had the first observation here. Go ahead.
I just thought, Judy, do you mind playing that little video? Hopefully it works. This one play struck me. It's a fairly meaningless moment, but
that was a 7-point game.
Okay, so watch LeBron here. When do you remember the NBA's finest athlete struggling to make a lightly contested layup over Nick Batum? That's all. He had 2 shots at that. He ended up getting offensive rebound. But I usually, when you're as big and strong and explosive as LeBron, you make that a lot of different ways. And he learned he had an ankle sprain and he sat out. And he's a little less superhuman right now than he has been for the last 15 years, and could be because the season ended a month ago. Could be because he's getting older. Could be he just won a game. But I definitely was like, we've been on the LeBron's getting older watch for a long time. He has a lot of miles under the belt. And mostly I feel like we've watched him operating with a surplus. Whatever fatigue is, you're out of your low blood sugar, your low hormonal levels, whatever. Like he's had a surplus of everything forever. But now, we're starting to see signs that he's scraping the bottom of the barrel in some ways, which is a new thing to see from him. And I think important. I think it could be important.
To me, as we age in life, we have less good days than we did when we were younger, right? But we still have good days, physically, I mean. I've always felt, I didn't always feel this way. In my experiences, I've learned that's what I see with professional basketball players. They still show moments that remind you of who they were. They just come less frequently. So LeBron is going to be he's going to make less athletic plays this year than he's ever made in his career, in my opinion. Because he's also never let himself get out of shape. So there might have been a year 7 years ago, but there is no 7 years ago because he's always been in great shape. He's going to do less of it. He's going to beat you with his mind. He's going to beat you with his will. He's going to beat you with his joy. It's one of my favorite things about LeBron is I think he's really learned over the years to bring joy to his teammates, because he is not the easiest teammate to have. That you better do that because you're not doing some of the other things. And so I think he's going to be less athletic more often than before. He'll do other things. I mean, the Lakers lost the first game last year, the Clippers, and we know what happened. Schroeder is going to be an upgrade. I think Montrezl Harrell as a cutter is interesting with a team of LeBron and Davis being primary scorers and in LeBron's case, primary ball handler, and people tend to ball watch more. Having that weak side cutter is valuable, and I think they'll learn that more as the year goes on. That's going to help. I saw no impact of. Tell me if you did. Gasol as a passer, I didn't really see that fold into the offense yet. And I wrote this and said this months ago when they got him. That isn't who they've been. If you want to run your offense through Gasol like Toronto has done at times and Memphis did at times, that's fine. That's just not how LA has played before. That doesn't mean they can't fold it in. They just haven't done it yet. But like I said, training camp was yesterday morning at breakfast. It's so recent that they've been doing this. So really then all Gasol has done is be a rim protector for them, of which he is. In fact, let's show Judy. It says with Gasol, it's a different story. Right before this play, well, I'll watch this play first. This is Gasol at the rim on a Kawhi drive. Hello, nothing, right? Vertical jump, get his big belly in the way. He's a little heavier than he used to be and leads to a KCP dunk because Gasol got really thin for a while. The play right before that, Judy, you can stop it now, is Kawhi went to the rim. Gasol said, hey, and Kawhi did a little 10-foot fadeaway and made it, which is fine, but he didn't go to the rim. Now let's watch those three other clips I have there, Judy, when Gasol is not in the game. And you know who else is not in the game is JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard because they're on different teams. And there was a period of time in the first half where the Clippers seemed like they said, we're going to the rim no matter what. And they did just that. Montrezl Harrell, no shot to make a play, 6'7". He's not a rim protector the way Dwight and JaVale were last year. Here's Lou Williams occupying, get Montrezl in the air, Zubac dunk. This is all in the span of a few minutes time. And while these plays were happening, and this was a transition play, I think, too, where they finished at Kawhi just kind of, no one's around there in transition, gets Montrezl can't make a play. You can stop it. They did it over and over again, Henry. Twice in the first half, Kawhi and Luke Kennard were at the rim. It looked like they were going to take a 6-foot runner, stopped, pivoted, stepped in for an uncontested layup. Both of them did during this stretch where the Clippers built this huge lead. They just aren't doing that last year against either of LA's first or second units. If Davis isn't in the game and Gasol isn't in the game, I think teams are going to recognize go to the rim nonstop, right? The only way we really have to be successful. And then if they fold their defense in to prevent that, we'll have wide open kickouts, which the Clippers did a great job of last night. We'll get to them in a minute. So what does Frank Vogel do? Well, maybe you've got to make sure Davis or Gasol are in the game almost all the time, with the exception of when another team doesn't have any slashers. And then you can sit both of your rim protectors. When Davis in the game, you can't go to the rim any more than you can with Marc Gasol. And we know Davis doesn't want to just be a rim protector all the time. So that's something that really jumped out at me regarding the LA. Other than that, they're going to be fine. They're going to be a great, great team. But not having those two enforcers, I think, matters. Henry,
do you mind showing that little shot chart?
At the bottom, yeah.
Did I freeze? What happened?
It's at the bottom of this.
Dun, 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 dun. There we go. So this is Zubac and Ibaka's scoring last night. Like, this just didn't happen against the Lakers last year.
Not often.
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, never happened. Ibaka made 2 threes last night, right? Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee were not at all a threat. Ibaka went 2 of 3 from 3. That matters. And then, like I said, not just those two guys at the rim. So this transitions us nicely to the Clippers. I was more impressed with the Clippers than I was with the Nets, in part because the competition was much better.
Mm-hmm.
But I was very impressed with the Clippers. And again, I realized I had them as being the best team in the regular season through the known schedule. That's all I've done the predictions for. But whatever. I'm happy to admit I was wrong. I'm happy, Wiggins wasn't any good. I admitted I overinflated the Warriors. I think I'm pretty good at telling you when I think I screwed up. I love what I saw from the Clippers last night. And they didn't really play Terrence Mann, and I think they're going to play him. I thought they were I've never seen the Clippers pass better than I did last night. I thought they were just constantly attack what I call the second box, which is the area of the paint, free throw line 8 feet forward. They were constantly getting second box and kicking or shooting if there was the right read. They made the extra swing pass. One time, Paul George, you've seen it, threw the ball directly to the referee out of bounds in the corner.
And then they yelled at Luke Kennard, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if he yelled at him. They'll make fun of him for making that pass. If I'm Tyronn Lue, I'm thinking, yes.
Yeah.
Like Paul George was open and just naturally threw it. And he just started playing with Luke a week ago. Let them figure some stuff out. But I like their depth. And they didn't even play all their depth last night. I like the way they can go Serge at the 5, Zubac at the 5. Very different looks. They can go big if they want with both of them in, and then Paul George at the 3. And then the other thing too is Paul George. You and I at TrueHoop years ago talked about. You did a piece on this where you interviewed me and I said LeBron needs to hire a sports psychologist after they lost the Mavericks in that first series. Years later we learned he did. We didn't learn right away. We learned years later. I don't know what Paul George did after his meltdown in the bubble. I know last night's Paul George looked like the Paul George we want to see. If you're rooting for the Clippers to win games, he was magnificent. He was the best player on the court.
He was amazing. And it made me remember, I'm like, okay, Paul George is a wonderful shooter last night, right? Like, what is Paul George, like when Paul George pulls up from 3, what are you thinking?
Actually, he's a really good shooter. I don't mind when he pulls up from 3. I like that he's assertive and confident. Like, let it go. Don't worry that you got to defer to Kawhi. Do your thing, man.
But he is. I guess I haven't looked it up, but I'm sure that if we looked up the stats, he's a very good shooter. But when he's off, that's what he's doing too, right? Like when he's unassertive, unuseful, Paul George, he's
just shooting it.
He's just doing that. I realized like last night I was like, oh, remember, like he's money. But
So to your point, I stole this from a golf instructor, Harvey Penick, calling it take dead aim.
I wrote it on the wall. It says it right there. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that for life. Don't just hope, like have a plan. And so I always tell people, if you're shooting because you're open, you're not shooting it for the right reason. No, you're shooting it to make that son of a bitch. Fucking make the shot. Otherwise, don't shoot it. But you're not helping us because you're supposed to shoot it unless you think you're going to make it. And very often when I've coached, when I took a player out of the game, I wasn't mad they took the shot. I'd say, no, I took you out because you didn't shoot it because you thought you could make it. I read your body language. You shoot it because you thought I'd yell at you if you didn't shoot it. That ain't good enough. You got to shoot to make it. So Paul George last night looked like a baller, right? And he doesn't need to do that every night because they have Kawhi Leonard too. And I thought Lou Williams played fine. Pat Bev played fine. Like your point on the Lakers, Having a lot of about the Warriors. They need more solid guys to let then Curry take us over the top. Well, the same with the Clippers. They've got plenty of solid guys who played solidly. The last thing is identity. What is the Lakers' identity? I don't know. What is the Clippers' identity? I don't know. Well, one game doesn't give you any answers, but I'm a big believer in that, who we are as a team. The Clippers, to me, need to be a defense-first team because they can be. And if they're a defense-first team, like we're going to really be a top 5 team all year, they're going to fall backwards into the first seed because their offense can be extraordinary. So last night, I thought there was a real commitment to defense. It's one game. I'm not impressed. Let's see where we're at 1 month from today. If they're top 5 in defensive rating, it's going to tell me, okay, this team is for real.
Gerard Hector's defense first. Should we talk to him? I don't know.
Yeah, that was a great quote by OG. I don't know. I shoot trying to miss. That's good. Yeah. Hey, Gerard.
Hello.
Well, all right, what did we miss, buddy? What did you see?
You guys nailed everything as usual. There's it's to your point, Coach. It is one game for everybody, so let's not overreact. What I will say that there were I was looking for certain things to see in the games last night for Brooklyn, not offensively. I was looking at things defensively, and again, because the Warriors are so bad, there isn't a lot that they're. Well, right now they are anyway.
I'm with you. Yeah, they were terrible last night.
That can tell me, but something I saw. So Kyrie picked up 3 fouls, in the first half, and I thought that at least one of those fouls was a foul for actually trying and caring on defense. Right?
I agree.
Fuck, whatever, I don't care. And so I was like, huh, that's interesting. And then a couple times in the game, as they were going back on defense, I actually saw guys communicating, pointing where you're supposed to be. I was like, interesting. So in the post game, we were talking to Steve, and he's like, look, offensively, we haven't installed a lot of things. We have our principles, but this is, and you kind of don't have to install too much when you have those 2 guys on offense. They can kind of figure things out. He's like, defensively, we're trying some things. And I was like, oh, I guess you can kind of see that. And all the players, not just KD and Kyrie, Karis, DJ, they're like, yeah, defensively, we're trying some things. And of course, because they don't want to tell anything and let go of secrets, they're like, we're trying stuff. So I think there seems to be, at least early, and it's still first day of school vibes, they're trying things and at least giving the appearance that defense matters. So
I want to hear from you. I always love your instinct and insights into players' mindsets as it relates to the media. So what's your thoughts on what we show with Durant and the guys from TNT?
So I agree with Henry in the fact that when it comes to not just KD, but a lot of these basketball guys, right? Their thing is, you guys don't understand this game, right? We play it and you don't get it. And there is a certain truth to that, right? I have no idea what it's like to play NBA basketball. What do I know? I just know what I see on TV and what smart people like Coach Thorpe teach me. And I think with Kevin, there is a sense that when you try to get deep into it, he's just kind of like, bro, this is a PhD conversation. You're community college. Don't come over here, right? There is that from him when you do that. So if you do come out with a basketball point, you better make sure you have all your things referenced and all your points that you want to point out, because he's going to be like, no, I'm not listening to you. I do think his position with Chuck and the inside the NBA guys, I agree with you that they're not there for basketball analysis. But if you want to laugh, watch Inside the NBA, because you will literally laugh all night long. And I need joy, so I always watch them to laugh. But he knows that Chuck and Shaq and Kenny get on him about things he does. And
is that right? Okay.
All of that was about, you guys talk shit about me? Cool. I want a 1-word answer you to death right now. Because he's petty like that, right? That is what that response is. Because when he did the Zoom call with us, he was fine. There weren't 1-word answers. They were it was fine.
Wait a second. Okay.
He doesn't like those.
So it was personal then. That's what I thought maybe was the case, because I don't know what they say about KD. That's why I asked you. So he was great on the Zoom call?
Yeah, he was fine. He was normal, it's not like he's not giving you anything in depth, super insightful, but he was actually, here's what I'm thinking about this. I feel okay. I'm not quite 100% back, but actually engaging with the reporters. But with those guys, you talk shit about me? Nah, I'm 1-wording you to death.
What did Steve Kerr say?
Kerr or Nash?
Kerr.
Kerr was basically like, look, like, as you said, he's an adult. We are a work in progress. And he does think defensively they're going to be a really good team someday.
Okay.
Not this day, not anytime soon. He does love Wiseman, and thanks God. Imagine how good he's going to be in 2 months.
Yeah.
He's going to be really good. And then end of the year. So I do think there's going to be a point where Steph will be enough to elevate. What I'm thinking their plan is, and I don't know, if I'm Bob Myers, it's okay. Let's try to get Andrew Wiggins looking halfway decent, right? So that we can move him to some dumb team and get something back of value, right? Some kind of shooting, whatever. But that's what I'm thinking they're hoping to do. And Andrew will be a little bit better than he was, right? Because he has those like moments where like, wow, you watch him for 8 games and you're like, this is why you're drafted number 1. Then you watch a game like last night and you're like, oh, that's why.
Right. He'll still score 20 a game. Right. Yeah. He's an average 20 a game this year. It'd be nice to do it against the good teams, not just the bad teams.
Yeah.
Right. And what were your thoughts on
you got James Wiseman at dunk in the first minute?
Right. What do you think of Clippers Lakers, Gerard?
You know, same as last year, right? Like the internet was so funny. Lakers come out, like the Clippers come out, and they win that game, and it's like, yeah, but you didn't do it when it counted. And I think for the Lakers, right, like they're going to, like the Heat, maybe it's going to be a little bit of a slow ramp, right? Just because those guys just finished playing intense NBA Finals basketball, and they got some new pieces who have no idea where they're supposed to be yet. But they have LeBron and Anthony Davis, and you guys know when you have like supreme talent, you'll just win games just because they're better than 70% of the league. So they'll still be very excellent and be a top 3 seed, and then come playoff time, they'll round into form. The question is, will the Clippers have they fortified themselves from last year? That was something that back to Nash, he talked about. We got all these things that are good, but we haven't. You say you get forged through the fire, right? The metal hasn't been forged yet. There's no fire that's happened with those guys. So we don't know if we're going to be any good. The Clippers, they went through some fire last year. That was some forging. Has that helped them make them better going forward?
Guys, I cried during the ring ceremony, and I always cry when a team wins a championship. Always in any sport, 50-year-old softball, I'll cry at a championship. I know what it takes to win a championship. I've never come to a ring ceremony. I've never even thought about it. I hope they do it forevermore. Shoot those videos to connect their families, whether it's mom and dad, uncle, or wife. It was amazing. Did you guys like it?
Loved it. That was really cool.
I fast forwarded the whole thing.
Henry, it was because they're the ones who drove the moms drove them to practice, right? The moms drove them to practice growing up. The wives remember what it was like when they weren't winning championships and all the hell you go through as a young player and all of that. And Jared Dudley's 3 kids, and the whole thing, man. I just was crying the whole time. It was awesome. I thought.
I heard someone had a puppy. Who had a puppy?
Oh, who did have a puppy?
Anthony Davis had a puppy.
Yeah. I didn't hear because at this point I was still doing the post game from the other games. So I had the TV on mute, but I saw LeBron's kids looking not like thrilled or excited about anything, and I looked at the internet stuff and people were like, oh God, dad won another title again. Ho hum, boring. Like, they're like, we don't know anything but winning. This is whatever. How
about Marcus Morris being so excited for his brother while he's on the Clippers team, having twins, obviously it's boy, girl in my case, and I've coached both those guys. I mean, that's real. That is absolutely genuine and real. And it's, again, I love the whole thing. I hope they do it every year with fans next year, and let the moms and when wives would ever introduce it. I just thought that was the coolest thing.
The most expensive championship ring in NBA championship ring history, made by Jason of Beverly Hills. Just a little news flash.
It's ridiculous how big that thing is.
Yeah. Monstrous.
This is the first time anything's ever happened in the NBA where there's like a benefit to you or a career or public image for having a genuine marriage.
True.
I'm not even kidding. Like agents would tell players, like, you got to just dump your girlfriend. That's all over. Like, that's not the lifestyle here. But like, this is the first court lockdown is the first time where like James Harden would have a hard time making that video. It never mattered. It never affected anything until last night. It's a change.
That's how we're going to end our last show before the special holiday.
Do you think they do a show with like the ladies from Spearmint Rhino and
We're gonna be back on Monday. We're
Yeah.
not here on Friday.
Monday's gonna be a
We're on
special
Friday
show.
holiday.
Special
Yeah.
show on Monday.
Special show on Monday.
Yeah.
Should be fun.
Have a great holiday, guys. Be safe. I'll
Thank
be
you, Billy.
driving.
Thank you, David. Thank you,
Good, be
Scriven.
safe.